Part of the sweet palette was about, for me, was about that, kind of trying to get some of this sweet state of mind where people kind of, where you get the sense that maybe it's sweet and innocent and kind of sticky. And at first, when I first started using the palette, it was kind of, it's probably a little bit more perverse than I use it now. Now I kind of feel like it's just part of the language. And I tried desperately to include new colors, and there's a whole bunch of new colors in here, but they tend to have, I try and change it up for myself, you know, and make sure that I'm not sticking to something too, you know, militantly, but I really, I guess it's kind of a blue palette too. I hope that answered the question. But so I kind of came to it in the beginning, and then it's just developed over time. Different series have called for different combinations and different uses of it, but I think of my work as being a little feminine, I guess, and you know, early on I was trying to embrace that idea, that they were kind of girly and kind of sweet. And then I kind of let that go, but I still feel like there's something a little feminine about them. I don't have a problem with that. Kind of girly. Anybody else want to ask me a question?
Question here. Have you taken inspiration from Chuck Jones and Roy Lichtenstein?
Definitely Chuck. Well, of course, I can't deny any amazing paint. I mean, I teach painting and drawing as well, so I mean, I can appreciate just about anybody you throw out here. And Chuck Jones, absolutely. I was watching. You know, it's funny because I'm working with a lot of very dark, just, you know, imagery to kind of, that's the starting point a lot of times. And then I mean, you're thinking Chuck Jones probably because of The Rock, right? There was something about Bugs Bunny on the moon. And yeah, and of course the colors and the flat. Maurice Noble would probably be somebody that I would look to, definitely. I mean, he did the storyboards for Snow White. Very inspired by those kind of people. Chuck Jones, absolutely. And I was watching a little, some Woody Woodpecker when I was putting some of these images together. So there's a lot of these kind of things right here. You know, in Woody Woodpecker, there's always kind of these broken walls with, you can see the slats exposed. And I'm playful with some of these things because like I said, I have a problem with a lot of the things that I'm working with. So I try to figure out how I can make sense of all that. And the nice thing about there's a little bit of Woody Woodpecker in there, but I'm also trying to get kind of beyond that wall. So there's a lot of spaces like that that are reminiscent of that. But absolutely, I mean, there's probably so many more I'm not mentioning, but yeah. And you know, you can't probably name a painter that I don't like, or an artist that I don't like, unless they're jerks. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that I don't respect in some way. I can't find some reason why a student wouldn't like them. Yes. Yes. Is anybody?
Okay. Mine is a process question. Did you work literally? Like, this is supposed to be a piece that goes from beginning to end, but it's a circular piece that continues on. Did you, when you first conceived of it, did you start at a beginning, or did you start in the middle and work in one direction and work in another direction, or did you work literally?
I worked all over the place.
Because another reason I asked you is I've heard you have limited space
Yes.
to work in, so obviously you can't fit all this in. So
No.
I was curious whether you started from the beginning all the way around.
So what I did was So it's interesting because the first piece I did is probably somewhere in the middle over here, and I did work all over. Some pieces I think probably is more obvious, the ones that kind of stayed together. What I did do was I had drawings to scale that were interchangeable. So you know, I had my squares, and I had the other squares kind of lined up where they needed to be, and I could move those around where I needed them to be. But I could see quite a few at one time in the space, and I had a scale model that Jesse built me, which was very, very nice. And I could move things around in there too and get a sense of how they were going to be. But I tried not, see, when I first came up with the idea, it was going to be completely circular, so I was going around. And then when I realized they were going to be, when I realized they would be better in this space, in sections, I started to think about it very differently, so I started working in between and back and forth, so that there would be some unity and harmony between all the images. But, you know, I mean, this was the last one that I did, these two, so in some ways, you know, maybe I kind of couldn't get out of that English language left to right, but I moved them all around as much as possible, and it worked. That one, you know, these I finished last, but kind of went back to that and had to paint when I brought them in here a little bit. Don't tell anybody. But I don't know if that answers your question really, because I think I did so much of it on the drawing first.
I was just curious,
Yeah.
because you know, people take it
Yeah.
it's
I didn't know where it was going to end, you know, to be honest with you. I wasn't quite sure, and I think that's one of the reasons why I kind of struggled. People were asking me about narrative, and I brought it up because I kind of struggled with that, because I think when I think of narrative, usually I think of a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I was actually trying to do something very different than that. So I think what people are really asking me when they're asking me about narrative is like, what am I supposed to think when I see it? And I'm just not going to answer that. So. I mean, I have lots of things I want you to think, but I'm not going to tell you what to think when you see it, if that makes sense. Yeah. What's that? Yes, I know, I did. I couldn't help that. You haven't? Did you look it up? Okay, so Kilroy was here. There is text, but it's anonymous text. Kilroy was here is a really popular graffiti phrase from World War II, and American soldiers, when they were occupying different territories, would leave this up, you know, write it up from different places they were at, and it became sort of a general American tag. And I included it because I wanted there's no humans in any of the work, and there's really no animals. This is all meant to be a space that you can be in. That makes sense. It's not an other space, it's something for you, for me. Even the eyes and the faces are general enough where hopefully you're not really quite sure what to make of those. But I wanted there to be some kind of idea of a human touch, like everything has been touched in some way by man, by humans. And whether it's there because that's all that's left, or whether that's there because someone was there, or whether it's there because it's you. Kilroy can, I say this, it's an American tag, you know, and I chose that one because I'm American, but, and also we tend to touch a lot of things, but it is text, and I did, you know, it's a new element for me, because generally I will ask my viewer to identify with more of a specific kind of animal. An animal or a specific type of scene that may be familiar in some way that they're not quite sure why they're familiar with it. So this is a very different entry point for my viewer, but I wanted it to be text because I wanted it to be a mark, which is different than symbolizing with sort of relating to maybe a symbol or a metaphor or an archetype, something that can be quite spiritual and deep. It's actually a mark, and it's a kind of funny mark, but it's also generalized. Kilroy would be I have some faces in here that kind of look a little bit like Kilroy too. There was actually